Welcome to Liberate Your People Pleaser. I am Brenda Florida, certified life coach, and you might be a people pleaser if you tend to prioritize other people's wants and needs over your own. If you're the peacemaker, if you're always trying to create harmony with the people that you work with and live with, you probably are also an amazing problem solver. You have great intuition, and you're probably an empath, or at least have great skills of empathy. And the reason why I call this Liberate Your People Pleaser and not Fix Your People Pleaser is there's nothing to fix. There's nothing wrong with you. These are fantastic qualities that you have, really superpowers that you just naturally possess and instinctively use. And what gets problematic about them is when they get turned around on other people all the time and not on yourself. And what do I mean by that? Empathy. You can understand how another person feels, you can understand their perspective, or you can put yourself in their shoes. And when you do that, you may be prone to giving up your own feelings, your own position, your own perspective, and you make theirs more important. So you're prioritizing what they feel or think or their position over your own. And that's when things start to go awry for us. And so in this podcast, each episode, we'll talk about different ways that we can pour up those great skills that we have and use them for ourselves first, and then give to others out of that fullness, rather than prioritizing everyone else. So it doesn't make us selfish when we stop prioritizing everybody else. What it does is allows us to have the power that we need internally, the confidence and the clarity that we need internally, to then go impact the world in an even more powerful way. So I'm Brenda Florida, certified life coach, and I'm so glad you're with us. Let's liberate your people pleaser. Welcome to this episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. And if you're listening to this in real time on the release date, it is Valentine's Day. So this is a day that can make us feel very blessed or very blue. And I've been on the blue side of it many times. When you don't feel seen or heard in your relationship, it is so discouraging. And if you're not in a relationship, but you'd like to be, or you've been burned, has some, difficult stories of past relationships, then stay tuned, because I can tell you, I've been on all sides of it. I've been single for many years. I've had one really lovely relationship, and that I felt really seen and heard in. And life circumstances didn't really make it practical for us to be together. So we're not. But it was a lovely experience of being seen and heard. I've also been in relationships with narcissists. And if you're in one of those, or anything emotionally abusive, um, there's no being seen and heard, right? Like they're not capable really of seeing and hearing you, because they can only see things from their own perspective. So those are the sort of two extremes of being seen and heard, and then not being seen and heard. And for most people, the relationships are in between, right? You have times where you're seen and heard, or topics that your lover or your husband or whatever wife can see or hear you, and maybe other topics that they really can't, that, or you don't feel seen and heard. So let's unpack this a little bit, because I want you to know that it's not just about your partner. And so you're not a victim to whether or not they figure it out, so to speak, and you can be seen or heard. So much of being seen and heard starts in our own journey with ourselves, because most of us have spent a lifetime, actually, of not seeing and hearing ourselves. In fact, we've probably been subtly, if not overtly, conditioned that we should get that feeling of being seen and heard from other people. But in fact, if that's your perspective, then you're always at the mercy of other people in order to have that really great feeling, that validated feeling, empowering feeling of being seen and heard. Whereas when we see and hear ourselves first, then when someone else doesn't see and hear us, we handle that very differently. Not surprisingly, the relationship where I felt really seen and heard came after the relationships that were emotionally abusive and, where he was a narcissist, because I was in lots of therapy and lots of coaching and, did my own work on those things to figure out the role I was playing with it, is maybe a way to say it. So not to insinuate that it was because of me that he was a narcissist, or because of me that he was emotionally abusive. No, that's who he was. It wouldn't have mattered if he was, married to me, married to somebody else. That's who they are. That's what they're bringing to the table. So that is not the point. The point is me. Why did I tolerate that? Why did I blame myself for that? Why did I silence myself? Why did I prioritize what he wanted all the time? Why did I, understand where he was coming from? Or another way to think of that is have all this empathy for him, but not for myself. So those are sort of the classic things about being a people pleaser that set us up to get into relationships romantically, professionally, in every way. But today we'll talk about the romantic ones where we're not seen and heard because we haven't been taught to value ourselves first, to validate ourselves first. That the fact that I feel criticized or I feel hurt is enough. Like, I don't need my partner to agree with me to say, oh, yes, I shouldn't have said that, right? That's what we want. So, super important distinction here. Being seen and heard doesn't mean you're always agreed with. And you don't, when you're seeing and hearing yourself, you don't need the other person to agree with you. But it does change how you respond when you realize you're in a relationship where habitually you are able to see and hear yourself, which then builds on to being able to communicate clearly and express, what you need to express to your partner. And you are consistently met with, some version or another of no, where they're not, going to make any change. They don't see that they're doing anything, wrong or whatever. You're just hitting a brick wall all the time. You stop doing that. You leave the relationship, because who wants to be married to or dating or at any, point with a brick wall? Nobody does. And when you're loving, prioritizing, validating yourself, you just don't tolerate that any more than you would tolerate being BFFs with a bully, right? So when we see and hear ourselves, the communication comes online, the clarity comes online. We stop all this prioritizing them all the time and prioritize ourselves. We think our feelings are as important as their feelings. And in most relationships, then it just becomes an issue of what I call like navigating and negotiating. So, I want to go out to dinner, you want to eat at home. Okay. When I'm feeling seen and heard, when I'm hearing and seeing myself, and I can communicate to you, and you don't always, you don't have the habit of dismissing what I want, then we just navigate and negotiate. Well, tonight, let's see, what should we do? We've been home a lot, so let's go ahead and go out. Let's do it the way I want to tonight, because maybe we've been doing it the way you want to a lot lately. Or just whatever, you think of something else totally different, order in, or I don't know, like whatever, as if we could go out to dinner these days anyway. But anyway, you get my point. It can be something much bigger that you're navigating and negotiating, like, even whether or not to have children, whether or not to change jobs, whether or not to, you know, invest in a business, or any number of things. But when you're seeing and hearing yourself first, and you have a partner who's also seeing and hearing you, you just move into, okay, you've seen and heard each other. You see what you want is different. So now just how do we navigate and negotiate that? When you're with somebody who can't see and hear you and you are seeing and hearing yourself, that's why it has to start there. Because not really, you may have a partner who is in the habit of not seeing and hearing you, but that might be because you are not in the habit of telling them what you're feeling and what's happening for you, what your experience is, what you want. I know I had gotten myself to where, like, not intentionally, it's just, one diminishment at a time, that doesn't seem like a big deal at the time. And I just stopped asking for what I needed, one by one, slowly but surely, because I got a little resistance, I stopped. And so that's not his fault that I stopped asking for what I wanted. So in that relationship, I started asking for what I wanted and it just made him very mad and he ended up, moving out. So that was that. But in this other relationship where I did feel seen and heard, there were lots of things that we saw differently. He didn't realize, I would have reacted the way I did. But once I saw and heard myself and communicated that to him, then we had a mutually beneficial moving forward, right? And by mutually beneficial, I just mean everybody wins. Like, it doesn't mean I get my way all the time. It doesn't mean, but there's that navigating, negotiating, you're two people, nobody gets their way all the time. And so you'll feel good about it. I felt good about it even when I didn't always get my way, because I saw and heard myself, he saw and heard me. We just decided to do something that was different than what I wanted to do. So the key is really in that being able to see and hear ourselves. Now, for everyone, what interrupts that for you, or what blocks that, or what hijacks you from being able to see and hear yourself and then communicate what it is you want or know what you want, that is different for everybody. Often it begins in your childhood, some incident or a series of incidences that happen in your childhood that create that habit now as an adult of prioritizing others, of shutting down how you feel, of diminishing how you feel, of critical self-talk, all those things. So that's why I created this one-on-one coaching package, Be Seen and Heard, because these are things that typically have very deep roots. And of course, every relationship is unique, as you are unique. And so you deserve a unique solution. No cookie cutters here, no formula, do this, this, and that, and then you're going to be seen and heard. No, because it's more complicated than that. Because if it wasn't more complicated than that, somebody would have already written the book and you would have already read it and you would feel seen and heard. So these are things that are very sort of insidious. They're very unconscious usually. And so working with me one-on-one is really the best way to unravel those things and then find that empowerment that comes from seeing and hearing yourself and then bringing that into the relationship. So I hope that if you're in any position today where you're feeling diminished, you're realizing you've been prioritizing your partner, in my um, page where I talk about this package, the Being Seen and Heard package, which I'll put the link in the show notes, I call it partner pleasing, because that's where, people pleasing goes into our relationship and we end up just as a habit doing things to please our partner all the time, keep the peace, create harmony, don't rock the boat, all those things. So if you've gotten into a habit of partner pleasing, then I invite you to join me in a one-on-one coaching package, the Be Seen and Heard package, where we can unravel that, bring you back to your power, back to being able to see and hear yourself, and then work through how to then communicate that and start showing up differently in your relationship. And it doesn't mean you're married. You could be dating somebody, you could be single, and you just want to figure this out before the next guy you meet or the next gal you meet, shows up or whatever. Because I did a lot of work on this kind of stuff when I was single, so that when I did get in that next relationship, I could show up as a, higher level version of myself. So check out the Be Seen and Heard package in the show notes, and let me know, if this is, of course, this might be more private. You might want to email me at brenda@brendaflorida.com, or, DM me in Instagram or Messenger, if you've got a question about the package, or whether or not it would work for you given your situation, or whatever your challenge or whatever your victories are, right? It's such a victory to prioritize ourselves, even if we don't get the response we wanted. Like, it just feels so good when you start prioritizing yourself and what you need and what you want in your relationship. So I can't wait to hear from you, and I will see you in the next episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. And I can't wait to get your questions or registration into the Be Seen and Heard package. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. But don't go away just yet. I've got more for you. Right now, I have a special running on a coaching package that I put together specifically for partner pleasers. So this is how we show up in our romantic relationships. It's so important that we identify where people pleasing is silencing us, or where being overly empathetic is silencing us, how we're keeping the peace and really sacrificing our own wants and needs in our romantic relationships. So I've put together this little package. I've got a special on it right now. 3 sessions. These are 1 hour, full 1 hour sessions. And the 3 sessions are only $397. That's over 30% off of a typical first package of 3 sessions for anyone working with me. This is available for people who've worked with me in the past, or for new clients. And you're going to get these 3 sessions, because I know in romantic relationships, a group program just doesn't cut it. Usually, you need to be with somebody you can talk about your specific problem, your specific argument that you have over and over, your specific challenge with setting a boundary or telling what you need, or whatever it is. So I've designed this to be very private, one-on-one. You get 3 one-hour sessions plus a great little workbook I put together that'll help us evaluate your relationship and be better prepared for that first session. So you can get all that right now for $397. I've got the link in the show notes here. And I really hope that you'll take me up on this special offer, because it's a small investment compared to the benefits it can create in your own life, your own stress levels, and the, spark in your relationship as well. So I hope you'll join me for that. Also, I'll put in the show notes my private Facebook group, Liberate Your People Pleasers, because I'd love to have you join me over there as well. There's great conversations happening over there, more social media, contact from me, and we do challenges, and, there's just different free resources I put in there as well. So I put that in the show notes for you too. And last but not least, I would love to answer your question, whether it's on partner pleasing or any topic that has to do with how people pleasing might be impacting your life. So I've got a form on my website that you can fill out and submit a question. So I'll put that link in the show notes as well. And until then, I will see you on the next episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser.